Well, as always, it is great to welcome on and say good morning to our good friend. Guy Benson is here on KCMO. You hear him 3 to 5 in the afternoon after Ben Shapiro, before Mark Levin. And it has been a treat to have him on this radio station for the last few weeks. And now the postmortem, we've done a bunch of that. The questions this week, well, the biggest question seems to be, who the heck is going to be the Senate Majority Leader? You've got John Thune out of South Dakota. You've got John Cornyn out of Texas. And then, of course, you have Rick Scott out of the state of Florida. Seem to be the top three candidates right now. Guy, good morning. It's great to have you on KCMO. How do you see this race shaping out for Senate Majority Leader this week?
Well, you mentioned the three guys who are in contention. They're the only three candidates. I suppose it's possible that could change if everything goes sideways, but I think it's probably going to be those three. You've got Rick Scott, who just won another term comfortably, right? He's always in Florida won by like a point or less until this year when Republicans really blew it out in the Sunshine State. He won by 13 points or so. And he had challenged Mitch McConnell earlier in the current Senate cycle and got trounced against McConnell, but he had at least thrown his hat into the ring as sort of almost a protest candidate against McConnell, and he's been signaling now for a while that he wants another bite at that apple. Meanwhile, John Thune, John Cornyn, they've both been part of the Senate leadership before. They've been there a long time. Thune from South Dakota, he won, if I'm not mistaken, 20 years ago when he beat Tom Daschle, who had been majority leader at the time for the Democrats, a big Republican year, 2004. And then Cornyn from Texas, he had been a top aide, sort of not an aide, but a top sort of right-hand man to McConnell in Republican leadership in the past in the Senate. I think Thune and, at least as of a few days ago, Thune and Cornyn are seen as the likelier front runners. I think the kind of conventional wisdom that I had heard was that Thune was maybe slightly ahead. Cornyn, though, was making a really aggressive play and has a lot of people in his corner and is well respected, and that Rick Scott really didn't have much of a chance. Now, that might be shifting a bit because you're seeing a lot of high-profile allies of President Trump coming out behind Scott. I think part of the reason is he hasn't been there that long. He's much more sort of openly enthusiastic about Donald Trump and sort of being willing to do what Trump wants in the Senate to a greater extent than the other guys who are, I guess, by some seen as more establishment or been there longer or maybe too long in some people's estimation. I would just say part of the job of Senate Majority Leader is to corral a very wide array of people who think quite differently sometimes on issues, from the Mike Lees and the Ted Cruzes of the world on the right to, the Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski crowd in the center. And whatever you think of McConnell, he was actually quite effective at straddling the fence and herding cats, and it's not an easy gig. And I think having a lot of institutional knowledge in terms of the levers of power, the parliamentary procedure, that sort of thing. Again, whether you love McConnell or not, and net, I think he's been an extremely effective Republican leader. I know some people have issues with him for various reasons. I think big picture, he's been really masterful at it and has run circles around Chuck Schumer for years in a lot of ways. You want someone who is going to be able to bring the conference together to the greatest extent possible and know where that power lies and how to use it. So I think that would be part of the argument that, a Cornyn or a Thune would make against more of an insurgent, MAGA-type candidate like Rick Scott. So, we'll see. I think it's very, very fluid. I know there have been some whip counts put out there that I think are not really credible just yet. The last thing I'll point out on this is it is like one of the world's smallest elections. You get exactly 53 human beings are allowed to vote in this. It's the incoming members and the current members. The outgoing members don't even get a vote. So it'll just be the members of the next Republican conference, and it's a secret ballot where those few dozen people get to make a choice. And if someone I think someone probably be eliminated on the first ballot. So let's say Rick Scott is in third place. I'm not sure if he is anymore because they've got a number of people coming out for him publicly, Rubio, Rand Paul, a number of others. But let's say whoever comes in third could be eliminated, which would then go effectively to a runoff down to 2 people. It's all done sort of in private. There'll be leaks and that sort of thing, but it is a very private process done by secret ballot, just 53 people, where these senators and senators-elect get to decide which person is best suited to represent them as a conference. It's very different than, any sort of national election or even state-level election that we're used to. It's a very discrete group of people. And so we'll see. There's a ton of behind-the-scenes maneuvering happening right now with the Rick Scott people, I think, loudest on social media and out there in public. Whether that translates into behind closed doors secret ballot votes from senators, very different question.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Guy Benson here on KCMO, afternoons 3 to 5 every single weekday. Some of the other things that are happening this morning, Trump has picked New York Representative Elise Stefanik to serve as UN ambassador. Tom Homan is going to be his border czar. When you look at those 2 picks in particular, neither should be all that surprising to obviously people who have been following this stuff. But Elise Stefanik is someone who has kind of straddled, you talk about straddling kind of MAGA with maybe more traditional Republicans. She seems to have done that pretty well. It's gotten her this post. How big a deal is that, if at all?
Well, full disclosure, Tom Homan's been a pretty regular guest on my show, so I have many thoughts on him. And Elise Stefanik is a friend, so I think it's a very cool opportunity for her. I think if you see the way that she handled, for example, some of these presidents of universities recently, as they just wobbled and wiggled and tried to get out of her questioning or out from under her questioning on all the anti-Semitism. She is dogged. She is tough. And I think seeing her go in there and kind of just take a blowtorch in the UN, I think the U.S. should massively, not completely withdraw, but I think massively defund our effort at the UN. I think it's a completely broken institution, and having someone there with a healthy level of contempt, deserved contempt for that institution, I think would be a good thing. I would just caution, we don't know what the House margin is going to look like eventually here. Yeah. It's going to be really, really tight. They still haven't called the House for the Republicans yet. So even for a period of months having vacancies, I mean, that's the type of math Republicans have to think about if they're going to want to get anything achieved, anything accomplished votes-wise in the House of Representatives. So anyone taken out from the ranks of House Republicans to put into the administration, obviously it's Trump's prerogative. This is just an extra consideration to have in mind. And then just quickly on Tom Homan, this guy's absolutely dead serious on this issue. You think about the most recent border czar, who is now the failed presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, who truly did not care about the job, does not care about the issue. Her policies are the problem. She couldn't even be bothered to really pretend to even go down there and learn anything. Tom Homan is going to be exactly the opposite of that. This man has been thinking for 4 years about all the things that could be done differently, and now he will be empowered to do virtually all of those things differently, starting literally on day one. I know that phrase gets tossed around a lot. And I saw a CBS News story that some migrants are concerned about the outcome of the election. And I would just say, yes, they should be. The illegal immigrants should be concerned. They shouldn't be here. And Tom Homan knows that. And we're going to get, it's hard to conceive of a bigger upgrade from Kamala Harris to Tom Homan when it comes to border czar. My goodness.
That is so well said. We'll be listening today at 3 o'clock with Guy Benson, who has been kind enough to join us the last few weeks during this election season. Guy, thank you so much for doing it. We'll check in a few weeks or so and enjoy some hopefully downtime around the holidays as well. But I know the news cycle is going to stay busy. You'll be on it, and we appreciate you being here on KCMO.
Well, I love being on the station, love hearing from all the listeners, and it's just a great station to be a part of. And boy, we are sandwiched in between a couple really smart guys in Shapiro and Levin. So great company there.
Absolutely. And I did hear all those KCMO callers that you got last week on Election Day. That was good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're hearing from your listeners a lot on social and phone calls and everything. So we appreciate it. Thanks for the warm welcome, everyone.
You bet. Guy Benson, great to have him on 95.7 FM.